Hello, hello. Welcome to the Lalantia show. Today I'm coming on to talk about believing. So this is specifically about believing in fairies, but it kind of can go for anything, believing in anything. And I'm going to share some of my own personal stories and some of the things that the fairies said when I went into the forest yesterday. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Lalantia. I'm a psychic realm channeler and energy healer, and I specialize in working with the magical realms. I work with dragons, fairies, mermaids, unicorns, all the different kinds of magical beings. And I work with them to bring through different messages and help guide people to know, a greater picture here that we may not be seeing as our human selves, but also to connect to our most authentic selves, because we have a deeper connection with these beings than we realize we do, because our human experience, we forget past lives, so we don't know how much incredible energy there is available to us and how amazing these beings really are in our own journey and purposes that we have here on earth. Now, we are in right now, it's the beginning of 2021, and we have been talking for some time about this creation, manifesting vision of the new earth and moving into this energy of the new earth, right? And so much of this is in being and living in harmony with the earth and having a better balance. And we have lost our connection with the earth as humans in general. Not, obviously, there are those who have a deeper connection, but we have these massive cities where there are many people who don't really even get to see much nature because they live in such a urban area. So it's really, really important that we allow ourselves the space and time to connect with nature and to connect with the earth. And so when I went for a walk yesterday in nature, excuse me, and I went to the same place that I go to on a regular basis, but it has been a period of time because of weather and just everything going on. I haven't gone as much in the past month or so. So when I went, I took a moment to connect with the land and with the fairies or nature spirits of that area. And I have developed a very strong connection with them because I have repeatedly gone there for several years now, and I know them. I know many of them there. So these were the fairies specifically of that area that I was communicating with. But also in my time there, the fairy Queen Maeve came forward and began to communicate with me about the importance of the message that the fairies had shared, and that she's going to have more to share. So I will do a separate video with more of what she had to share, but she did expand upon and talk about the topic that I'm going to talk about today, which is about believing. So we come into this world being told that fairies are not real. Well, maybe when you're a little kid, your parents let you have an imagination, but my parents didn't really. They told me, that it's imaginary, they're not real, and I was never really allowed to believe in anything. I grew up in a house where we could have an imagination, but it was about playing real life things, playing house, playing with your dolls, playing with Barbies, these kinds of things. Not so much about, oh, let's go make fairy houses, because I don't remember one time in my life as a child actually believing in fairies. So that is my personal experience. So you may have grown up being told that fairies are real. Maybe you got lucky and you got to have that experience. But for the most part, most of us have always been told, or it was just kind of clear just by the society we live in, right? We can see it when everything, you tell the average person that, oh, fairies are real, they're going to look at you a little bit funny. And I have told many people who are strangers that aren't necessarily in the spiritual community or aware, that I work with fairies, and sometimes it's like, oh, they don't really know how to react because they don't believe, or they just haven't had the opportunity, right? Because we just shut it off. And so we all have different experiences in regards to shutting it off. For me, it was when I was very young and being told it's just my imagination, it's not real. And this was for a lot of things. I don't even know if any of it was specific to fairies. I don't remember if it was when I was really young. But there were other experiences that I had that kind of shut that part of me off. So I just thought that everything I experienced, including ghosts that I saw as a child, was my imagination. And it was only as an adult, upon my own awakening, that I realized that wow, a lot of these experiences that I had as a child, and as a teenager and even as an adult, were actually real, and I wasn't just imagining it. So the fairies, when I was speaking to them in nature, they said that it is so important for us to believe, to allow ourselves to believe, and to deepen our connection with the earth and with the fairies or the nature spirits that are there and helping the earth. See, their purpose is here to take care of the earth. Their purpose is to take care of the plants and the water and the trees and the dirt, the soil, the rocks. All of these different things that is their purpose. Now we came here to create a new earth. That is one of our purposes, right? That is one of the reasons that we are here, to create a new earth, which is finding our way back to what is real and seeing what is real, which means, yes, it is important for us to believe in fairies, but our connection with the fairies, and if you want to say nature spirits, you can. There's all kinds of different words that you can use. Fairies is a very broad term for these different beings because there's all kinds of different beings within that term. But that connection with the fairies can allow us to understand what our purpose is for the new earth. And when we work with them, we can create this really powerful energy. We can create a greater impact, and we know where the focus is, and we understand the energy of these different things. We want to live in balance with the earth, so we need to have a connection with the earth. We need to be communicating with Gaia and feeling her beautiful, loving energy. Now, the fairies help us with that connection, and they help us to see what is important, how we can work with these different plants as food and as medicine, how we can work with building materials that are in harmony with the earth. They can teach us these different things that we just don't necessarily know on our own. Now, sometimes they work with people in such a subtle way, people don't know that they're working with them. So I've been watching a lot of videos about sustainable living, and one thing that has come to my attention, and they're confirming it, I guess, is that these people, they're learning from each other as well, because, there's videos on YouTube, but they are learning a lot of these processes of sustainable living through a support system from the fairies, even if they aren't aware of it. It is so subtle, they don't know that they are being impacted and feeling that this drive and this purpose within them to create a more sustainable way of living on earth. And the fairies are really supporting them. Now, fairies read our energy. Upon meeting us, they immediately know our intentions and our integrity. They know if we are genuine or not. And when somebody spends a lot of time in nature, whether they believe in fairies or not, they're going to be impacted by that energy. They're going to feel their energy and the fairies' influence of the importance of connecting with the earth. But this also, we can't discount Gaia and the earth itself in influencing people, but it's also their own soul's desires. It's our soul's desire to live in harmony and flow with the earth. Okay, so this video is supposed to be about believing, and I feel like I'm just kind of going off on this. So many other things to talk about in regards to this. So we have a hard time believing, and even when we want to believe, sometimes we have a hard time really believing. So I'm going to share a little bit of my personal story. When I first had my awakening, I went to a healer, and on my way driving there, I was thinking, I don't really believe in angels. I want to believe in angels. This was before I even knew fairies were real. And I knew that I wanted to believe in angels. So I went into my session with her and I told her, I really want to believe in angels. It's like, I know that I believe in angels, but I don't believe in angels. Like, there was a wall up, right? And I could feel that wall. I could see that wall. It was very clear. It was very obvious to me that I just couldn't quite penetrate that wall. So I had this healing session with her and we talked afterwards. And I don't remember what was said, but we talked about angels and believing, and I started driving home and I was like, that wall's gone. I believe in angels. And in an hour, that whole energy had shifted. And I suddenly realized that I believed in angels and I didn't have any difficulty in that. I knew with it, my whole being that angels were real. Okay. So then I don't know, later on that year, maybe it's the next year, I'm not sure how long it was, fairies came to my attention. They kept showing up for me like over and over and over. And I was like, at first, I was very skeptical about fairies being real. And I had stumbled across this woman who was talking about fairies. And I remember thinking, this is really bizarre, but I was really, really drawn to her. And so I watched more videos. I did a workshop or program, and I started it for me, believing in fairies was kind of a gradual process. There was a part of me that always believed, but there was a part of me that had a hard time releasing the conditioning that I had around it just being your imagination. I didn't want to be this crazy person that believed in fairies. I wanted it to be real. I wanted to have proof. So you can't have proof if you don't believe, right? So I had to allow the conditioning to fall away and to work through the conditioning that was coming up. And I slowly began to believe more and more. And as I believed more and more, then it became easier and easier. So then I would go into nature and I would allow myself to feel their energy and I would open up to them. And that is when I would begin to receive in different ways. So I talked about this in a video that I posted on Instagram, and I'm trying to remember exactly how I said it now. But what the fairies have said about believing is, one, it is so incredibly important that we allow ourselves to believe and we make an effort to step into that energy. We need to make space. We need to go in nature. We need to um, do the work. And that doesn't mean that you go into nature and you say, okay, fairies, I'm ready. Come talk to me or whatever. No, you have to show up and you have to have consistency and you have to be prepared to really go into this. Now, fairies like to receive gifts. They like to have an interaction with you. So if you go into nature and you just begin to speak to them and you bring them a little gift and you just let them know that you are here to allow yourself to open up to believing in them. So if you don't have a belief in them yet, just let them know that you are allowing yourself to open up to believing in them, that you want to believe in them, but you can talk about your own conditioning and any fears that you may have about it or whatever. But just begin by speaking to them without any expectation, right? It's when you go in there with an expectation that you're going to receive something, then you block it. You're just pushing it away. So if you go in without expectation and you just start to communicate with them, then you can begin to receive stuff. So for me, when I began to open up, I began to bring them gifts, and I would go routinely. I would go into nature, and it's the same park that I went to yesterday. And I would just go and I would walk through the park. And this is a nature reserve, so it's off the beaten path. I would go deeper into the woods where there isn't any path and sit and just be. I would just be with them. And sometimes I would almost always bring some kind of gift. I always have a little pouch in my bag that has crystals or little gifts that I can give to them. And so I would bring them gifts and I would speak to them, and I would just let them know, my intentions. And I learned to let go more and more and just allow it to be whatever it is. And I began to feel their energy because I'm a big feeler. So I began to feel their energy when they started to come in. I started to feel that um, it wasn't necessarily love. Oftentimes when I'm connecting with a being, it's love that starts to come in. I just started to feel things. I started to feel a flutter of energy. I started to feel a deeper connection with the earth. I started to have a lot of knowing starting to come in along with the feeling. And eventually, as I continued to revisit and I continued to just move into the energy and open myself up to whatever it needed to be, that's when I began to receive more. And I began to hear them and I began to see them. And it just got stronger and stronger and stronger. But it took time, it took commitment. I had to be committed to my connection with them and keep showing up. Once that was really I don't know, established, I just kept visiting and kept deepening that connection, then it became easier for me, even at home, to connect with different fairies, and not the ones of that forest, but different fairies. And just in general, my connection with the Fae was becoming stronger because of my commitment to it, to that path, and to connecting with them. Now, there's always a part of me that was always connected with them, right? This is a part of my purpose. So this is something that was always there to some degree. But because I had been told my whole life that it wasn't real, I had to allow the blocks, the fears. I don't know if it was fear so much. I had to allow these things to fall. So that work was within me. But also, especially visiting in person fairies of this forest, these fairies don't necessarily have a soul connection with me. Some of them do, actually, but not all of them. Most of them that I was connecting with don't have a soul connection to me. They're just fairies that are taking care of this forest. And I'm there and I'm saying, okay, I want to help you. What can I do to help you? How can I spread the messages that you want brought into the world? How can I be a part of the change that needs to happen in the world? And this is where they began to, connect with me. But within my own meditation practice, I was beginning to connect with those that I do have a soul connection with. I began to connect with these fairy queens that were coming in and speaking to me of the importance of many different things. And it began to get stronger and stronger until it was just a natural thing. And I no longer even thought about the fact that there was one day when I didn't really, truly, fully 100% believe in fairies. It almost feels weird to say that. To be honest, it feels weird to say that because there's a part of me that knows I always believed. But I know that it was just that being told that it wasn't real, that I had so built up and so much fear. It was fear around, being judged as a crazy person, being seen as a crazy person. And now here I am on YouTube talking about fairies for the whole world to see. Total turnaround from that, right? It's so different. And now I have no hesitation and I have no doubt in my mind because I've had so many experiences. Now, in my connection with this forest, I began to develop a connection with different trees. And there's one tree that started to show me different visions. And he showed me these visions of our past lives, even past lives with him and I, this tree and I. And he was a different tree at that time. But there were so many things that were starting to come forward because of my commitment to it. Now, when I asked the fairies yesterday, how do we allow ourselves to believe? What is the message that people need to know about allowing themselves to believe? And besides all of sharing, they wanted me to share these experiences, but also they said, you need to connect to your heart. You need to get out of your head and drop into your heart. And you need to allow your heart to feel what is true for you. Right? I can't just sit here and tell you fairies are real, just believe me because I have experiences. No, you have to experience it for yourself in order to believe. But that takes a commitment, and that takes letting go of these preconceived notions and this conditioning and just our society, right? Our society teaches us that they're not real, that they are our imagination. And it's okay to have in your imagination, but it's not okay to really believe in them. The thing is it is okay, and we need to deepen this connection with them. We need this relationship with the nature world, the natural world. We need this connection with the nature spirits, with the fairies, with the trees, with all of these amazing beings, because they are helping us to create the new earth. So I encourage you to, deepen your connection with the earth, go into nature. When I went into nature yesterday, it was raining, it was soggy. I was hiking through thick mud, almost fell several times walking through, but I didn't even care. And even though it was cold, I was never cold because spirit kept me warm. I asked for warmth, and usually I call in the dragon for warmth, but I didn't. It was more like the fairies were helping to keep me warm. I didn't really even feel dragon presence. A lot of times when dragons come in, it's hard for me to connect to anything else because their energy is so intense. So I didn't invite them in because I didn't want them distracting me from my connection with the land and with the nature spirits there. So I was able to stay warm, even though my socks and my shoes, I was soaked to above my ankles from walking through puddles, and I don't have waterproof boots or anything. So I was completely soaked. And when I got through one of the puddles, I was like, oh, I need to get some rubber boots so that I can hike through these areas and not get so wet and muddy. And then after a few moments, I was like, no, I need to just take off my socks and shoes and walk it barefoot. And then a part of me is like, but I'm going to freeze if I do that because it's winter and it's really cold. And I mean, it's not that cold. It's not frozen. And it was raining. So I don't know how cold it was, probably in the 40s. But this this part of me was like, no, rubber boots are just going to disconnect me more from the land. I want a deeper connection. And I am one that will go out, any day that's decently warm and take off my socks and shoes. And in the winter, I have to periodically go into nature and take off my socks and shoes and feel the earth. I need that. I need that connection. My body gets all, I don't know, depressed. I'm just going to use the word depressed if I don't have that connection. And that has been ever since my awakening. I've realized more and more the importance of that connection. So that aha moment really made sense to me once I allowed myself to think about that. And my whole thing was just, what are people going to think? And who cares what people think? Go and march through that puddle with your bare feet and have fun and feel that mud between your toes. And to me, that feels amazing, right? So okay, I get off track on my talking, but the whole thing is that it's time to believe. It's time to let the walls drop and allow yourself to sink into a deeper connection with the fairies. Now, if you already believe in fairies, what is your relationship with them? How are you connecting with them? What are you doing to make space for that connection with them? Are you actually going into nature and connecting with them? Are you bringing gifts? Are you picking up garbage? Are you doing things to help the environment and the earth? What are you doing to be a part of this change? Okay, that needs to be a part of it. Recycling is great, but what else can you do? Maybe buy from small businesses supporting a local economy instead of supporting massive corporations. That's just one thing, and a lot of times we're like, oh, but it's cheaper on I'm not even going to say the word. So we want to go to them. Well, that's not supporting the change that we want in the world. So these are things that are important to think about. And that is going to help your connection with the fairies. Now, there is a difference in connecting with the fairies in the forest or the land where you live. That connection is extremely important. You need to do that to deepen that deepen that connection with the earth and just with the fairies in general. But you can also have the practice of meditation and connecting with fairies. And I journey. So I'll journey and be taken to different realms and different planets. On another video, I'll talk about galactic fairies. But this connection with them in meditation is also important. But you're going to probably, and it's going to be a little bit different for every person depending on you and your past lives, there's so much that has to do with all of this that I can't say for you personally. But for me, it was definitely connecting with the land and in nature itself that deepened that connection enough that in meditation, I was able to begin to connect more with fairies in a different way than you do when you go into nature. Now, when I go to the forest and I'm connecting with the fairies, I will see them. Not with my physical eyes, but with my third eye. Sometimes I'll see them out the corner of my eye. I've been startled a few times, but most of the time it is more with my third eye. I'll also know, I know their presence, I know their energy. I'll kind of know who's coming in. I hear, so I can communicate with them. Now, once again, the hearing is not from outside of me. The hearing is from within, so it's easy to dismiss it. It can be very subtle, but I will spend time in just allowing that energy to come in. Now, one last thing I want to note is that fairies are not all for our highest good. So anytime we are asking and inviting energy in, we want to be really clear about the boundaries that we have. So when you go into nature and you're like, begin to communicate with the fairies. This is another thing I can hear people already asking me, how do you actually communicate with them? So I will speak to them in my head. but I will do it in a way that it's different than just like a little conversation in my head. It's like I can feel it being sent outward. So I'll talk to them, I'm speaking to them in my head. So they do hear telepathically. Okay, where was I going before I went off on that little thing? Totally lost my train of thought in regards to that because that's the other thing popped in. I wish I could like rewind this video right now and just see what did I say, but I can't do that. Where was I? Shoot, I'm gonna rewatch this and be like, crap, why did I forget where I was going with it? I don't remember. I really don't remember. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had a cliffhanger for you guys somewhere in there. Um, oh, the integrity. That's what it was. So it's really important to be clear. So you go into nature and you're like, okay, I'm inviting in the fairies. And then you need to set your boundaries. Okay, I'm inviting in the fairies who are of the highest and best good, the deepest of love, the highest of integrity. I set integrity, I set a number. So I will say an integrity of 8 and above. 10 is like supposedly highest integrity, but actually there are beings that come in and say they're higher than highest integrity. So but I will just, be really clear that I'm only willing to communicate with and connect with those that are really of the highest integrity. Okay, so it's really important to set those boundaries when you're connecting with fairies, especially because there are a lot who aren't for our highest good. Their job isn't necessarily to connect with us. They're here taking care of the earth, and they might not be very happy with us. So they may want to lead us astray or tease us or whatever. And teasing isn't so bad unless it's, has some kind of harm in it. But yeah, setting integrity with the fairies and any of the nature spirits that you're connecting with is always really important. And anytime you're connecting with any beings, I do it as default, always, always, always checking integrity. So I guess that's everything. This video ended up being quite long, so I'm going to let you all go. I hope that you have a magical and wonderful time, and I will see you on the next video.